Hey everybody, this is Jim the Tabletop Engineer, and welcome to a new Let's Paint a Mini video. Today I am painting just one, but it's a big one. This is a miniature from the Cthulhu Death May Die game. It is in the Mythos, H.P. Lovecraft's Mythos range of games. I think it's Hastur. It could be Hastur, but I don't know. H.P. Lovecraft named all his bad guys really weird names, and I don't know if there's any consistent pronunciation, but I call him Hastur. The game comes with a suggested color scheme, but as you can see, it's covered up in the bottom. So I'm just going to sort of go with where I feel best. I do know that he's typically portrayed wearing a yellow cloak. This is based on a storyline. If you're not knowledgeable about the mythos, about H.P. Lovecraft and his stories, well, that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to talk about how I got into Cthulhu, why I'm such a huge fan of the mythos, and why I play so many games in the mythos. Not just games, I read books, I listen to podcasts, stories, that kind of stuff. So I'll get to sharing that with you, but first what I'm going to do is move the camera down to the painting area, and I'm going to get started. So to tell you how I discovered H.P. Lovecraft and Mythos, first I need to tell you that I am no fan of H.P. Lovecraft as a person. The man, if you've never heard of him and you Google him, you're going to find out. He was a man of his time period, like the late 1800s, early 1900s. He was quite, I don't want to call him a racist, but yeah, I think he was. I mean, I don't know the man. I never met him, but a lot of people will tell you that, he just really had some issues. His stories are, have characters in it that just, they would not get along well in modern society, okay? A lot of the beliefs and a lot of the things that are mentioned in some of the older stories just wouldn't hold up to today. But H.P. Lovecraft is still widely considered just one of the most, not prolific, but just effective horror writers because he created a universe, a universe that is just incredibly well fleshed out in terms of like unknown creatures and science gone mad, but some sort of magic infused with the world. It's kind of hard to explain. There are a lot better videos out there that you could probably Google that will give you a background on Cthulhu and what he's all about. And I definitely would encourage you to look those up if you're not familiar with the mythos, because you might be missing out on a game or at least some stories that you might enjoy. So that sort of leads into how I discovered H.P. Lovecraft. Now I'm going to tell you right now, I don't remember, I think it was 5th grade, so it was elementary school here in the U.S. I was, I don't remember, 10 or 11. The library at my elementary school, it was based on the Dewey Decimal System, but I was a reader. I liked to read science fiction, and I did like to read scary tales. I, to this day, do not know how in the world an H.P. Lovecraft book made its way onto the shelves in an elementary school for various reasons. One, not just the subject matter, because it deals with insanity and people losing their minds and some of the horrors, disgusting horrors that they see in this world that they live in. But the other thing is, H.P. Lovecraft, his writing style was just very difficult to parse. His language skills were top notch. I mean, he uses words that I frequently sometimes have to look up. I just can't remember. I'm like, what does that word mean again? And usually they're horror-related words that you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Good word. But I don't know how this book ended up on the shelf, but there was an introductory, it wasn't even called Introduction to Lovecraft. It was something along the lines of an introduction to horror or something like that. And so I picked it up, I took it home, and I think there was just one Lovecraft story in it. And I'm pretty sure it was the Dunwich No, it wasn't the Dunwich. It was it's on the tail. It was the I just went blank on it. The Dunwich No. It was the one where, and this is horrible, and I'm a fan. I should know this. I'm talking and painting at the same time, so my brain's not working. It's the one where the guy finds his way into the town. It's Innsmouth, the horrid Innsmouth, or something along those lines. And I was totally taken with it. And I told it had his name, H.P. It had a little bio about him and all this stuff, and I really liked it. My mom, who just was outstanding growing up, because her philosophy was she would take me to the library and I could check out as many books as I wanted as long as I read them. And it was the honor system. She would say, "Did you read all these books?" And I'd say, "Yes, ma'am, I did." And sometimes she'd ask me about them, give a little book report. Mom was awesome. She's still alive. She was and still is awesome. But I have my love of reading I have her to thank for it. Because she never boycotted books. She never said, "Oh no, you can't read that." I mean, if she did, I can't recall. But if I found a book, obviously the books I would find, I don't believe were questionable at the time. But she would just say, "Okay, are you going to read it?" And sometimes I would read it and I'd be like, "I didn't like that." And she'd be like, "Okay." And she trusted my taste, but she was a little she was a little open. She was definitely open-minded. This is the parents who allowed me to get into Dungeons and Dragons during the Satanic Panic, which really hit my town. Not hard, but it did hit my small town. So I tell you that only so that you understand that my mom and dad, they were pretty open-minded, and they would let me read what I wanted to read. So Mom took me to the library, public library, and I found I do remember the asking the librarian there where the horror section was, and she asked me if I was looking for anything specific, and I said, "Yeah, there's this author's last name is Lovecraft." I didn't know he went by H.P. Lovecraft. It was just Lovecraft. And I do remember her going, "Are you sure?" And she even looked at my mom or whatever, and I was like, "Yeah, I like," and thankfully she didn't, play guardian at the gate and keep me from doing it. So in 5th grade and 6th grade is when I started to read H.P. Lovecraft and the Mythos books. And I read most of what he put out, at least everything that's sort of been published in collections and stuff like that. There may be a few things I've not read, but I'm having a hard time remembering if there are. So what happened next was a few years went by, and I think I was either in 8th grade or 9th grade, and I was at the gaming store. Now remember, I was into D&D at 6th grade. I had been playing role-playing games for about 2 or 3 years. So either 8th grade or 9th grade, I'll have to go back and look. I was at the gaming store, and on the shelf was a flat game box, brand new, called Call of Cthulhu. It was 1st edition, and I will kick myself forever and a day because I kept it in good condition, not perfect, but good condition. And a few years ago, I actually traded it. This was before I really got back into Cthulhu. I traded it for some other game content from a gamer who had some stuff I wanted, some old RPG stuff. So we traded, and now I wish I hadn't have done that, but I don't regret it. I mean, if I really wanted to get it again, I could probably find it, but it's expensive, and I don't want to pay the money nowadays to get it. Instead, what I did was about a year or two ago, I backed the reprint of the original Call of Cthulhu, and it came with a whole bunch of stretch goals, so it was actually a better deal for me. Even though it's not the original, I have all the original content that I paid for in that game. So I got the game, and I brought it home, and I read it. Now, the Keeper is the GM. It's called the Keeper. And the players play investigators. And in the game, the game is set in like 1920s, 1930s. And I read it, and I was like, "Oh, I want to play this. I want to run this." So I told all my friends about it. And I was like, "Y'all come over." And I don't remember I think we did it at my house. It may have been another friend's house. I said, "I'm going to run it, and you guys are going to love this." They didn't love it. They didn't like it at all. They didn't like the time period. They didn't understand this insanity thing. Like, why would my guy do that? He's going to go, why if he does that, I'm going to take sanity and I'm going to go. They didn't understand that the whole point of the game was you're on borrowed time. Almost every Cthulhu kind of game you would play today, Call of Cthulhu, any of the card games or board games, they all have this element in it of losing your mind, going insane from the things you see and the things that happen to you and around you. It's just, that's part of the whole thing. But my friends, they just didn't get it. And so the box went on the shelf. And this is, believe it or not, this was the first game that I ever bought that I didn't really play, but I kept it and I read it frequently. I would get out the rule book and just read it. It had a source book that came with it about all this 1920s, the costs of things and what the interior of a Zeppelin balloon looked like and a train car. And it was just, I don't know. I've always been fascinated with that time period. So my friend said, no, not into this, and we went back to playing Star Trek, the role-playing game, Dungeons and Dragons, BattleTech, whatever. I tried, and they didn't want to do it. So anyway, it didn't slow down my interest in Cthulhu at all. At that point, there were not a lot of books being produced on Cthulhu. There were short stories that were sometimes published in horror magazines, and sometimes those were hard for me to get because they cost money or I just didn't know about them. But it took a while, but jump forward to today, all right? And I can't tell you exactly when all these games happened, but sometime in the last, 10 years, 15 years, Cthulhu sort of became somewhat, I wouldn't say popular. It's definitely not as popular as Dungeons and Dragons and similar games of that manner. But there are players that love to play games set in that universe. And so you may have heard of some of these games. The biggest ones are put out by like Fantasy Flight. They include Arkham Horror, the board game. They include Arkham Horror, the card game. There is Elder Sign, which is another one by Fantasy Flight. There's what is it? I can't remember all of them. There's just so many. Mansions of Madness, that's a huge favorite of mine. There are just so many, and then of course Call of Cthulhu is in its 7th version. And even though I don't play it, I bought the 7th version because it's definitely probably, I think, one of the more popular versions of the game. I have managed to play it here and there at some cons when I could, but I just enjoy reading the rule book. And I tell you this so that you understand, it was one of the first games of where I realized that I could just as easily collect rule books as reading material. I didn't necessarily have to play the game. I could get enjoyment out of just buying the rule book and just, pondering on some of the craziness. So that was probably, I'm pretty confident that is the first game I ever bought that I really didn't play, but I broke out the rule book and would enjoy reading through it. So Call of Cthulhu today is pretty popular, but it's the board games that I believe are more popular, mainly because board games, with a game like Call of Cthulhu, it's sort of like a campaign, right? You play your investigator until he gets killed or she gets killed or until they go insane, right? It's a role-playing game, and so there are aspects of a role-playing game that are built into it. But most people that I know tend to find the mythos through some of the more modern board games. And I got to tell you, the one thing I love about Fantasy Flight games is most of them, almost all of them, can be played solo. So all of you, most of you who know me or follow my channels, you know that I'm a big solo game player because my family, my boys and my wife aren't really into gaming. And I often can't control how finding game players locally to go play a game because my schedule changes. It's hard to schedule games. So I have just naturally fallen into, oops, wrong color. I have just naturally fallen into solo games. And one of my absolute favorite things in the world is to play a solo Cthulhu game, and there is a never-ending supply of them. Just when I think that I've found them all, or at least found all the ones that I'm really interested in that have a solo option, I find another one. And games come out so frequently that it's easy to overlook them. And this miniature I'm holding in my hand right now is part of a game I just discovered that's been out for like 4 years. And the only reason I discovered it now is because they just had another Kickstarter for the update to the game, which is, it's not really an update to the older game, it's an expansion to it. The first game that came out with what they call Season 1 and Season 2, and that was like 4 years ago or 3 years ago or whenever. And they just now came out with Season 3 and 4 in Kickstarter. And so when I found the video, I somehow missed the first Kickstarter 4 years ago, and I've not really heard anything about this game in my circles. But all of a sudden, it showed up on my radar, and I started watching some of the playthrough videos, just of the first episode, season 1, episode 1, because I figure if I'm gonna want to play it, I don't want spoilers. So I did watch a few very simple rule coverages of the game without seeing the game all the way to the end. But after watching it, I was like, I have got to have this game. Now, on eBay, some of this stuff is going for insane prices, but I am very lucky. I'm lucky that I live in Atlanta, and I just happened. I wasn't gonna pay the eBay prices. I was just like, you know what? I missed it. I don't suffer anymore. I used to, but I don't suffer the fear of missing out or whatever. If I miss a game, oh well. If I can't get it in retail or if it's out of print or whatever, I'm not gonna. I don't like to hit eBay because of the gouging and stuff like that. So I went on eBay and I started looking at the prices, and I was like, you've got to be kidding. I mean, the original box, you'll find it online for $200, $300, and then some of the Kickstarter stretch goals and add-ons are like $300, $400. I was like, nope, not doing it. But about, I guess, 2 months ago, I was in a local gaming store here in Atlanta, and it's called Hobbytown USA. It has a gaming store built into it. It's remote control cars and models and trains and anything hobby, art, remote control, anything, and drones and science kits and models, you name it, they've got it. And I was in there and I was just browsing the shelves, and they have a game section. I went over to the board game section. I was just looking, and lo and behold, they had Season 1 and Season 2 on the shelf at retail price. And this was right before Christmas, and I had told myself that if I got out, that when I often reward myself when I get things done. Like I finished Delver 6 right about the time I think I finished it or sent it off to the printer. I said, okay, time to reward myself. What can I do? And I didn't really have anything in mind. I was just like, I wanted to buy a game or something for the workshop. And so right then and there, I was like, there it is. That I want it. So I splurged and bought both of them rather than just one, thinking that, normally I would have just bought the first one to try it out and then gone back. But I did not trust that it would be there when I went back again, if I liked the game. So I took a chance and I bought Season 1 and Season 2. And I came home and I read the rules. I recently played the very first game of it, and I won't ruin it. It was fun. I videoed it. It's out there. And it was so fun. And I was like, okay, this is yet another game I can play. Now, I do play Arkham Horror card game. I don't really record it, although I'm thinking about changing that and starting to record again. I did some of my earlier games, but I think I'm going to do it again. But I'm going to try to get a better camera angle and just start over and maybe do some light rule covering as I play and things like that. But I also play Mansions of Madness. Mansions of Madness is you can play it solo, you can play it cooperatively, but it's an interesting game. I bought the first edition when it came out years and years ago, but it required a GM, someone to run the bad guys, the secrets. And I bought it and I played it, or I read it, and I could never find anybody who wanted to play it. It was very heavy. It was a very heavy game. I mean, games can go 3-4 hours. You often will save your progress and just, pick it up later. And I say save it because the second version, which came out many years ago, and I got it because of this change. Fantasy Flight offered an app that will run the game for you. It does all the heavy lifting. It does the story part. It'll ask you for your dice results, and it'll tell you what the results are when you enter them in, and it pops surprises up on you that if you're playing a solo game, it's just perfect. And I have played many of the scenarios for Mansions of Madness. Not all of them. I'm going to set myself a goal one of these days to get through all of them. I have them all the expansions, all the tiles. Just have never gotten around to playing them all because it is hands down one of the most fun Cthulhu games for a solo. I mean, playing cooperatively would be great, but I play it solo and it is fun. And I thought that was pretty much going to be the game for me. I mean, I do play Arkham Horror the card game, and I play Arkham Horror the board game, and there's a few others I have that I will occasionally bring out. And then I found this one. The difference between Mansions of Madness and this one, Cthulhu Death May Die, they both can be played solo. They both track your insanity and your health. This game differs quite a bit, however. It doesn't have an app running it. It's no need to do that. It just has a scenario, and then you pick a random elder one. And there are numerous elder ones. There are like 3 that came with, 2 that came with the core box, another one that came with the season 2. So you've got 3, Hastur's one, Cthulhu's one, and then the other one is, I can't recall. But I should get it out and paint it. And I will eventually. But I just want to tell you that this may have replaced Mansions of Madness as my favorite Cthulhu game. And I've only played it once. But I got to tell you, it is absolutely so fun. And so the holdup on playing the game is what you're looking at right now. All of the miniatures come unpainted, and I am that guy. That I don't want to play a game unless the miniatures are painted. Now, there are some games that I will play with unpainted miniatures, and they're usually games that I don't expect to be playing a whole lot, and the immersion may not be important to me. But when I play a Cthulhu game, I want to see the colors of the bad guys. I want to see the investigators in their 1920s haircuts and clothing, and I want that. And so that's why I'm doing this. That's why I take the time to paint the miniatures before I play them. Now, I painted all the miniatures for Season 1, Episode 1, and now I'm ready for Season 1, Episode 2. I could play it with Cthulhu again as the Elder One because he's already painted. And all I need to do is paint the minions, and I just did that in another video. It was some ghouls that I'll be needing, so I've painted them. So the only thing that's really I'm waiting on is to get this guy Hastur painted, and also he has a minion or like a lieutenant called, and I can't remember what its name is, but I got to paint that one, and I got to paint this one, and then I can go on and play the Season 1, Episode 2. Now, after that, it should be quicker because after that, all I've got to do is paint some various minion cultists and things, some monsters, and because the core box doesn't have a whole lot. I mean, it has a lot of minis, but once you've played through the first 2 or 3 episodes, you've painted all the minis. It just changes up the combo of them. So while I could play Season 1, Episode 2 with my existing my existing investigators that I've already painted. And Cthulhu, I really want to play it with Hastur. I want to get all the variety so I can figure out which of the bad guys I like the best. Do I like Cthulhu better? Do I like the Hastur game better? I want to make that up for myself. I don't want to rely on people online telling me, oh, my favorite is this, it's got this benefit and this. I want to discover that for myself. So that's why I am painting up all these minis, because yes, I am that guy. I want to have my miniatures painted before I start playing, and so that when they're on the tabletop, I get the full effect. And hopefully some of you can identify with that. If you're one of those that can play a game without painted minis, especially a game you really want to play, I wish I could do that. I envy that, because that does slow me down sometimes playing the games I want to play, is that I need to wait and get the miniatures painted, and sometimes I'm busy and I just don't have time to do it. But right now I'm just sort of so anxious to play this that I'm jumping into it. I'm painting as fast and furious as I can to get all these miniatures done so I can play. I will put links in the video description below if you're interested in finding out more about the game. Again, I apologize that I'm hyping up this game that you may or may not be able to find, right? I mean, I know that sucks when you see somebody tell you about this great game and then you go out to eBay and you find out that it's just ridiculously overpriced. Now, I've been told that CMON, the game company, CMON or CMON or whatever they pronounce it, they are going to be doing some reprints of the earlier stuff, and you can still, until January 31st, until the end of this month, you can still go and do a late pledge for Season 3 and 4, and you can buy into Season 1 and 2. I believe they're still offering Season 1 and 2 reprints in the late pledge. And so, again, I will do my best to remember to put a link to that. If you Google Kickstarter, Death May Die Season 3 or Season 4, you'll find the link. And it's a Kickstarter that's already ended, but there's a button at the top that says Late Pledges. And if you click it, it will take you to the backer kit where you can still late pledge up until January 31st. That is how I got the 3rd and 4th season, but it's also how I got one add-on that I cannot find anywhere except on eBay, and the prices are through the roof. It's called Unknowable or Unspeakable. I think it's called the Unspeakable expansion. It comes with like 10 more investigator minis. It comes with I think 1 or 2 more elder ones, which are the big miniatures like this one that are the big bad bosses. I could not find it locally. I asked all my local gaming stores. None of them had it. I went out to eBay, and sure enough, just as I expected, the prices were insane, and I was like, I'm not going to do this. So CMON, if you're listening, please reconsider, or please consider keeping a lot of this stuff in print so that people who discover it later on through people like me who spout the praises of it. I hate to tell somebody to go find this game, but then send them to eBay to pay these extortion level prices. Please make your game available to everybody who wants it by reprinting some of this stuff and letting them get in on it. Just so you know, the Unspeakable box ranges anywhere from $300 or $400 up to I've seen it up to $600, and it was originally like $100 on the Kickstarter. And if you do the late pledge, you can get that box for like $100, I think. So it's available again, and I hope all those people who are selling it on eBay don't get a penny from it, because they're gouging people who just want to play the game and don't want to pay those kind of outrageous prices. What else? That is about. The other thing I wanted to tell you about was, if you really are into the mythos, or if you get into it like I have, I cannot tell you enough how much you're going to want to hunt down some of the new books that are coming out from a partnership with Arkham Horror Fantasy Flight. There's a company, a publisher called Aconite, Aconyte, Aconite Books. For about the last, I guess, year or two, probably 2 years, they have been putting out about 3 or 4 Cthulhu books per year. I have got them all. I've read them all, except for the latest one. The latest one just hit my books, just hit the mailbox like a week or two ago. It's called The Lair of the Crystal Fang, I believe. I haven't started that one yet. I will be starting it soon. But the Aconite books are so good. Some people don't like them. I don't get it. If you're a Cthulhu fan, what's not to like? I mean, they reference investigators that you'll run into in the games and locations, and it's just really fun. So Aconite books, and again, I'll put a link to them as well with this video. This video is going to have a lot of links with it for you guys to go and chase down, and I'll put down some links of the ones I can think of, some of the other Cthulhu games that I play that are not the ones I've already mentioned. I do have more. I'm just going to have to go into the game room there and look and see and go, oh yeah, how could I have forgotten that one? Which I will. There's some I'm sure I'll kick myself for not mentioning. What else can I tell you? That is about it. This one is taking longer than I thought. I did not mean for it to take this long to paint. So what I'm going to do is let this last bit of blue dry, because I am going to have to go over, there's teeth in this, and I've hit the teeth with some blue and yellow, and so I want to touch them up so that I can go back over them and make them look like teeth again versus blue or purple teeth. So I'm definitely going to have to do that. If you have any questions or comments about the Cthulhu mythos, if you're a fan like I am, let me know. If you don't like it, tell me why you don't like it. I mean, there's plenty of reasons to not like H.P. Lovecraft, but it's hard to turn down the worlds he's sort of created with his horror. Okay, that looks to be... I'm going to keep finding blue that I missed, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and turn the camera up and show you where I've gotten so far. So the only thing I've got to paint is I've got to paint his... turn on these lights. I've got to paint his face, his chest, and his hands. And he's supposed to be like a dead zombie-like character, so I'm going to have to get in there and paint those. And there's one, before I get this paint drying, there's one I really want to hit right here next to his head. And I'm going to regret if I don't get that now. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. It's just fun for me just to remember my background with H.P. Lovecraft and the Cthulhu mythos. Not a character, not a man who would probably do well in this century. I think that he probably was not someone you would want to pick as your top 3 people to have lunch with, all right? But he did create some really, really good horror that has continued for 80, 90, 100 years, spawned many, many games, and just a lot of enjoyment. So there you go. That's Hastur. He's not quite done, but I will take some before and or some after photos so you can see what he looks like when I get him all finished up. All right, that's all I got for this video. This is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer. Thanks for joining me on another Paint a Mini video and listening to me ramble on about my love of the mythos and H.P. Lovecraft's horror. Again, if you have any questions, post them below. I'll do my best. And check out the links below if you're interested in any of the things I've mentioned. All right, I'll be back with a new painting video very, very soon. Until then, everybody, take care.